The reason why this is a conversation is the right winger spot for Man United, no one's banging right now. That's why this is a conversation. If Antony started the first 4 games of the season and he had like 3 goals and 2 assists and Rashford was killing it on the left-hand side, this wouldn't even be a thing. But because down the right-hand side, Man United don't really have someone strong, it's a thing now. And they want to make it a conversation because like, oh, Sancho is better than what Antony can give us. Hey, we have to wait and see. But he's getting paid a lot of money. And maybe, by the way, I'm going to say one thing. I don't like giving credit to Tom Little, because Tom Little is full of crap. But with Tom Little, the statement he made on the Top 6 show, by the way, it could be valid, I thought about it. I genuinely thought about it. And it could be that now he's trying the reverse, which is instead of backing him publicly, he's going to attack him publicly. Maybe that motivates him to an extent. Maybe you come back and see the best version of Sancho at Man United possible.
It's what Ryan Giggs has suggested. Ryan Giggs believe it's almost the final throw of the dice in terms of getting a reaction out of the player that brings his ability and his talents that we know he has into tangible outputs and performances for the football club. That is certainly a theory that holds water, and a lot of experienced ex-pros believe that could be the case. They may have had it done to themselves, or they've witnessed that happen before. I agree with what you said at the beginning. Again, the report that's come out today says, and I think this is fair when it turns around and in terms of the way it's worded, players accept and respect Ten Hag's firm approach because it applies without exception to squad members, regardless of their status. And Sancho's reaction has gone down badly within the dressing room, but it was not greeted with surprise. So again, I don't think that's necessary. I don't mind that element of these articles because it's talking about the isolated incident, and it's talking about the player's reaction to something the manager's done, but the players seem to be accepting it almost, well, we know the manager's going to do this to us if we continue to not follow his rules and his standards, and the manager should have that power. What I'm in full agreement of is all the nonsense about, he's withdrawn when he's on media days, or he can come across as shy, or he doesn't want to be, he told us once to make sure the public didn't ask questions of him. That sort of stuff, leave him alone on that. That's completely irrelevant to this situation. If someone turns up late to work for me, that's a problem on a professional level. But if we're out on a works night out and we're drinking and someone doesn't want to join in and do shots with us, that's irrelevant to how good a professional that person is. And I think there's elements of this which I can't stand. They are a witch hunt and it needs to be shut down. However, this is where Man United fans have got to be grown up. And I've already seen tweets from people that are like, this happened to Pogba, it happened to Martial, but scumbags like Rashford and Bruno, they don't get any heat like this. And it's like, hang on. Again, you're throwing bad energy after bad energy. It makes no sense to me. You're attacking players who have done nothing wrong in this circumstance because you want to create some weird equilibrium. You can assess this situation and say, the manager had done it for this reason. The player probably shouldn't have reacted. The players are right to go, I'm annoyed he did that, but annoyed because they don't want this fallout as an example. They want it to all be kept in-house, but they know the manager might out you if you keep cutting corners or not reaching standards. The players are accepting of this. You can look at that as an isolated incident and go, that's wrong of Sancho. Equally, you can say, but it's terrible that the media and the board have released this information about Sancho. I'm condemning that part. But what people will do is they'll see an element they don't like and then go, that's it, I'm going to completely support Sancho, even though he did something wrong. That makes no sense. This is the thing for me. It's if my daughter was naughty at school today and a teacher smacked her, which is illegal in England, I'm going to come down hard on the teacher that smacked her. But I'm still going to talk to her about her misbehavior because the teacher mistreating her doesn't undo the poor behavior in the first place. And I think that's where the world's gone mad. That is where the world has gone mad. We kind of overlook certain things. And that's this scenario has really highlighted that to me, that there can be multiple things that are wrong within a situation and you can criticize them all independently of each other, but still look at it and go, well, I want the manager to have control. I still think the player, and look, people are ignoring the main part of a lot of these reports, that the manager and the player are going to sit down next week because the players that are not on international duty will train and they will sit and talk this out. And the board are essentially saying, look, we want to try and get the best out of you. If you want to play, we're going to play you still. And I like that attitude from the club. But what I'm, again, more frustrated about is our fans. Some of them are going in on Sancho is too far. And then others that are going to use their defense of Sancho to attack other players. And I heard it said in the space the other day, and it was to someone said it to Johnny. I had it on in the background. I was having a little listen. And Johnny said he wanted somebody to be treated in a bad way because other people have been treated in a bad way. And the guy on the space, because I don't want to plagiarize, I don't remember his name. If KJ remembers, send me his name. And he just turned around and said, but that doesn't make sense, Johnny. He says, why do you want to like echo the bad energy? Why don't you just treat everybody how you want to see your favorite players be treated and set the example? And that's kind of what I want from Man United fans here. If you're sick to your back teeth for the way the media treats Pogba and Martial and Sancho, the remedy to that isn't to be nasty to players that you don't see get abuse. It's weird to me, brother. It's a very weird way to view the world, if that makes sense. But yeah, look, hopefully this situation gets resolved next week. And then on top of that, for Man United, I wanted to get your view on this as well. It's now reported that Amrabat is injured. So he's just been signed, and Amrabat is injured.
What's the injury? How long will he be out for? Because I just saw the headline, to be honest. So is it the same back injury?
Well, this is the thing. So Rasmus Højlund spoke about his back injury, and he said that when he arrived, he had no pain. He didn't even know he had it. He said in the medical, they discovered a very small thing in his back. And he said, I wouldn't have even known that I had it. But it's one of those injuries which essentially is detected early that would have progressed into a bigger injury down the line. They rectified it. I think they just massage it out over a couple of weeks and boom. But this is what I would say. This is why the Sancho situation has to be kept in-house. The Antony situation is obviously not helping because now the media are licking their lips and they're sniffing around the bins for anything they can report as negative. And it's true. Amrabat has pulled out of the Morocco squad for this international break. And it's because he's injured. But they've found a very minute, very small back injury, which he can play with. He's essentially pulled out. We used to see this years ago. Giggs did it a lot. Scholes, Gerrard, all these players did it. Is they go, all right, I'm gonna not go on the international break because I'm gonna get ready to return for my club. How many times do we see our players in those years be injured for international breaks, but ready, fit for that first Premier League game back? That's what Amrabat is doing. But the media, again, being very particular on how they report on this against Man United. They're making it sound like, oh my God, they've signed another injured player. He's going to be out for weeks. The problems are mounting up. And look, I've been very critical of my club this week. But this one, again, I think is a mountain that's being made out of the proverbial molehill. It really is. It's pure precautionary.
This is something that, you know what it is? They're just using this as a way to kind of pile on Man United, which I love. Long way to continue.
Yeah.
Hopefully you get more negative, news at Man United. But the thing is, this all could have been prevented if Ten Hag just said a generic statement in the game on Sunday, and all this extra drama bullshit just wouldn't have started to begin with. This is why sometimes when managers are bots and robots, it's for good reason. Just come out to say some usual typical ass statement and life would have carried on. But now if Amrabat is injured, if we do assume that it's actually a reality and like he really is injured and it's not just quote unquote bad PR or whatever, then if he is injured, then Man United are in trouble from a midfield perspective because they're going to the Allianz away. I think Brighton at home. Listen, Brighton have had a fantastic start to the season, but I'd still expect Manchester United to beat them at home, or at least get a positive result like a draw. But that Allianz Arena away game midweek, as soon as the break is over, they're gonna need Amrabat for that game. They're 100% gonna need Amrabat. So if you play a Casemiro, Eriksen, Bruno midfield, it's gonna be a long day. I actually said that if Man United beat Bayern Munich at the Allianz, I'm gonna sing "Glory, Glory, Man United." That's how sure I am that Man United wouldn't win, because it's just, I don't think they have the facilities for it. But Amrabat at least makes it a respectful game, because I think Ten Hag would probably play a much more defensive side, have Amrabat and Casemiro in there together with Bruno ahead of them, maybe like a 4-2-3-1 type situation where it's a bit more defensive, or even maybe a 3 at the back, something like that. So it could be a bit more defensive. But Man United, I think, have had a disappointing window, in my opinion. And with this Amrabat situation, if he really is injured, then they're in for a long day. When's Mason Mount back, by the way?
Well, they said he was out for 4 to 6 weeks, and he's been out now. He's got to have been out now for at least 3 weeks because he played the first 2 games. So he could potentially be back. There's a lot of talk that young Mainoo back as well. Now, again, for me, starting him away from home in a Champions League
You can't
game
start
against Bayern
him,
Munich,
Bayern. You can't.
no,
You
I,
can't.
I don't think that will be the game. But that kid, this kid is
Palace at
special.
home.
Yeah,
Carabao Cup.
yeah. I mean, we've got Palace in back-to-back games. I think that's when you'll see him start to come in, and he's a big part of this season, Mainu. The manager. There was a lot of talk about us going in for Lavia, but essentially the manager said, I don't think we need to spend 50, 60 million pounds on Lavia when we have young Mainu. The talent is there. Now, having talent and it blossoming is two very different things. As you know, we talk about Sancho, he's got all the talent in the world, but it hasn't blossomed at Manchester United. So there's them elements there. But you are right. If Amrabat does miss the return, misses the Brighton game, misses the Munich game, it's going to be problems for us because the power and speed of those midfields will be very hard for Eriksen to handle. But I know that Amrabat's a big part of our future. He's been given the number 4 shirt, which is key. A lot of people would say, well, can he really be important if you sign him on deadline day? It's because we expected to get rid of other players 4 to 5 weeks earlier than we did, meaning he'd have come in 4 or 5 weeks prior. But yeah, the club had a terrible window. But in terms of its execution, so I think we signed some good players, but the execution has been 0 out of 10 for me across the board. When you look at the ingoings and outgoings, it's been poor. But yeah, I think Amrabat will be back. I think you're right. This is Millie Gunner may have had this debate 5 or 6 times, and there's some weird Man United fans online that say, "Oh, Ten Hag's a liar" when he says things like, "Maguire's got a future at the club, but yet he's 4th, 5th choice." And I don't like that it's called lying. I call it tact. You know, if your other half comes to you, your wife, for instance, and says, loves the dress she's wearing, and says, "Do I look nice in this dress?" You could be brave and go, "No, it's awful." But you basically have got to always guess what she's really thinking. If she thinks it's awful and you say, "I don't think it looks," maybe a different one, she'll back you. But if you turn around and tell her the truth and it's different to what she wants to hear, you're in trouble. So people have tact. They'll say, "Oh, that's really good." Your children come to you with a nice picture. "Daddy, look at a picture I drew." My daughter's an awful drawer. I know she's only 5, but she's horrendous. She can't draw for toffee. I'm not going to tell her that at 5 years of age because it will break her little heart. So you have tact. Now, I don't lie to my children, but they believe in Santa Claus. I let them believe in that. You know, I tell them, like, my son was trying to fold his eye out the other day, and I told him the old wives' towel. It's an old English thing. It might even exist in Jordan. What my nan would say if you were like, you know, when you fold your eye inside out. Did you guys used to do that? Fold your eyelids out. My nan used to say, the wind changes direction, your eyes will stay like that. Can you hear me? You there? Where's your Sam gone, people? He's frozen. He's back. Yeah. So like my nan would turn around and say, if the wind changes, then your eyes will stay
frozen.
there. No, you're back now.
Good.
You did freeze. Cool, you're back.
Yes,
yeah, like my if you fold your eyes inside out, my nan would say, if the wind changes, or pull a funny face, like, she said, the wind changes, you'll stay like that. Now that was my nan telling me on the surface a lie, but she was telling me a lie to make me not do stupid things by putting a little fear into me. I didn't consider that my nan used to lie to me as a child. No, my nan was teaching me a lesson, but did it in that kind of way. And I think that's what happens when managers do their press conferences. This notion that he lied because do we consider it a lie if a manager says, "Yeah, I don't think that Mo Salah will be fit at the weekend," and then he starts? No, it's a little bit of a mind game. It keeps the opponents guessing. This weird notion that suddenly, and again, it's only in my life, I've only seen it from Arteta outers to Arteta, and I've only seen it from these weird Man United fans. I don't quite get why they hate Ten Hag, but I've only ever seen it on those 2 managers ever in the history of football, where they overanalyze everything that he says, and they go, "Well, that weren't the truth. That player was fit," or "That wasn't the truth because he didn't play him for the next 2 games." And it's almost a case of, you do realize that they're not lying, they're just being professional. It's crazy to me how it's now been twisted into lying. And then the first time the manager comes out and tells the truth, these same people, how dare he tell the truth? How dare he say this in public? It's absolutely crazy. He's also getting crucified, Ten Hag, because it's now transpired that there was no medical permission for him to tell the world that Sancho was off for 3 months for physical and mental reasons. There was no permission to say he had mental health issues. Again, so now you are agreeing with me that the manager shouldn't tell the complete 100% truth as you want to hear it in the media. Because you don't. They pick and choose these individuals when they want to hear a lie and when they want to hear the truth. And by the way, that goes for life in general. There's sometimes where we want to lie, and there's sometimes when we want the truth. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's as simple
That's why
as that.
for me, I've always kept the same energy. I've always said I have zero problem with any manager after a loss or after a defeat blaming the grass or blaming the wind or blaming the sky, or just I generally have no problem with it, because like I want managers to lie. Like I've got absolutely zero problem with it. That's why I've never really criticized Ten Hag for a lie like that. Like I've actually criticized them for telling the truth on this show just now with the Sancho thing. So I've got no problem with the manager lying. I actually think it just takes pressure off of people, and it just makes the conversation to something that, I mean, we've seen Klopp do it. Like, you know, when it's like, oh, the wind was too blah blah blah. Suddenly everyone's talking about the wind now, and they're mocking Jurgen Klopp instead of talking about our loss. And these are the things. That's why you need your manager to lie sometimes. And it's the same thing with Sancho. He should have lied. It's the same thing with all of these situations. That's why generic bullshit answers are usually the best case scenario, because the media just use that as an excuse, or they just attack you with your dumbass quote as a manager, or they just, you know, but they leave the player alone. If he made some generic statement, no one would have been speaking about Sancho to begin with. Sancho's an afterthought at Manchester United. And for whatever reason, look, we have to free him from the shackles to find out. If he does go to another club and he performs well, then the problem was Man United. But if he goes to another club and doesn't perform well, then the problem wasn't Man United or Ten Hag. So we have to wait and see until he leaves. If he does leave, then we'll have that conversation if he plays. In the famous words of Jose Mourinho, see where they play, if they play, how they play. Because he was talking about players that like, oh, you sold this guy, you sold that other guy. Okay, do they play? No, they don't. Where do they play? Oh, some of them play for like Roma and stuff. Do they play well? No, they don't. So what's the point of that whole situation? So I hear people going like free Sancho and stuff, and I understand from their perspective. All I'm saying is, if he does leave the club and he bangs elsewhere, then you guys were right all along. But if he leaves the club and doesn't bang, then you guys were wrong all along. It's as simple as that.
But that's what free Sancho stems from. Sancho was a player that all these free Sancho merchants, and that's not me digging the player out, I'm talking about these fans, is they were adamant that Sancho under this manager would be the guy, and he hasn't been. So instead of saying, damn, my eye test is broken, it needs to go to the repair shop, they're looking for ways to try and counteract it. And it's very strange behavior that they are putting the club and the manager behind that of a opinion about the quality of a football player. It's very strange to me.